Well, hello, welcome back to another review of movies that I talk about because I want to talk about them. I don't care if you watch them, I'm going to talk about them, bruh. Today we're going to talk about the 1925/1929 Phantom of the Opera. If you're wondering why there are two different dates for that, I'll get into that in a minute. This movie, most people refer to as the first Universal monster, so that's a thing. Even though Universal doesn't really care about this movie because it's public domain, he does show up time to time in some Universal Monster merchandise. But Universal has never released an actual version of this movie themselves because this is public domain, so they don't really care. And that might be part of the problem with this cut thing, that why there's two different dates associated with this movie. The thing that's weird about this movie is there are a few different versions that came out back in the day. The 1925 being like the original. There was a couple cuts before that one, even before it became like the official mass-produced one, because of test audience and stuff like that. And then later on they released a sound one. And what we most commonly see now is this weird hodgepodge of the two different cuts that was made in like the 50s or something like that. So that's an interesting story. If you want to know more about this weird cut thing and like how it was accidentally filmed to be like 3D, if you like put those two shots together, because they have like two cameras next to each other, so you can technically make this into a 3D movie if you wanted to. I recommend you go check out James Rolfe's video about the movie cuts. It starts off talking about how there's a guy talking at the beginning of the movie. You don't know what he's saying, but acts like it should be an audio thing, but nobody knows where that guy comes from. And that's how he deep dives into all these different versions of this one movie. So I recommend it. It should be in the little eye thing somewhere. If not, you could probably look it up. It's not that hard. But yeah, this movie has a reputation to it. I think it's the first Phantom of the Opera movie ever. And for any of you normies who think Phantom of the Opera is only a musical, I am here to correct you and say it started off as a novel, and it was a horror novel, and then it became a couple different horror movies, and then the Broadway show happened, and then the Broadway show took over, and now we pretty much associate it with mainly musical stuff. Even though it started off as a horror movie, and Lon Chaney's version is technically a big horror icon amongst some nerdy horror fans like myself. So that's a thing. If you're into the musical, you might like this movie. It's the same bare bones story, but without the music. If you don't care about the music, but you like the story, you'll probably like this a lot. If you're into silent movies, that is. I know a lot of people can't deal with the silent movie thing because it's so different than what we see today, but it's definitely a acquired taste, I would say. Once you start watching them, they become enjoyable, I feel like, because there's like qualities to them that make them their own thing, which is cool. Like part of that being like how still some of the shots will be. Like they pretty much set it up like a play back in the day sometimes. Like you can tell how thick some of the sets are. It kind of adds like this otherworldly vibe to it with how grainy some of the footage is, and like how like static some of the shots are. But that kind of like adds to the flavor of the movie, and then like ever-wordiness, which we'll get more into when we start talking about German expressionism, when we talk about Nosferatu in a little bit, because we're going to be talking about our boy Nos, because we love Nos and Dracula and stuff like that. This is a good movie, no doubt about it. It's a silent movie, so it might not be for everyone, but if you're into silent movies and you somehow have not seen this one already, check it out. But some other things I would want to talk about. One thing that I think is weird, I find his initial mask a little bit more scary than his actual face in this movie. That mask that looks like a regular human face with this weird carpet thing, I guess it like enters the uncanny valley-ness enough for me to be like, that's a bit more creepy than the actual face. I'm sure the actual face was super terrifying back in the day, but nowadays you can probably get most of that stuff fixed on your face pretty easily. The teeth, just go to the orthodontist, and nose, probably just gotta go get plastic surgery. And the hair, if you want to cut that hair, you could do a Patrick Stewart vibe, because you kind of have like the bald spot in the back, so you could probably pull a Patrick Stewart, or you could just go completely bald. I mean, you'll still look weird, but hey, you'll look somewhat normal nowadays if you were able to. But yeah, I guess that's part of the thing back then, is that you couldn't really fix those things as much back then like you can now. And yeah, I think he got a lot of that stuff from the riot that he was in, or massacre that he was in. I'm not quite sure if it was from that or if he had it before and then it affected him more. But maybe it's a mixture of both. Either way, his face is a bit messed up. It's not too messed up for today's standards. I feel like he still has a pretty creepy face, though. And a lot of it has to do with Lon Chaney's expressions. His expression skills are so on point, and the part of that is due to him growing up with deaf parents. So he learned how to speak with hand gestures and facial expressions more than actual verbal words, which is cool. I am actually an ASL student, so I find that trivia fact kind of interesting. I wonder if he actually knew ASL at all. I forget when ASL really started becoming a thing, but it's cool that he knows how to talk to his parents without having to use words. That's cool. And helped with his craft, especially in the silent era where you couldn't even use your words. You would have to emote with expression. This is such an interesting fact about him, and I feel like it excels him to being one of the best silent era actors. The shame being that he died before he could even do sound. He died right after his first sound movie came out. So that kind of sucks. It would have been interesting to see him transition, and it's kind of ironic that he died from lung cancer. So, yeah. That's just a weird coincidence there. Some other things that I would like to point out. The color scene in this movie is interesting. It's one of the first color scenes. I mean, there was some stuff before it, but it's just an interesting thing to have in this silent movie. A lot of people don't think color really came around until Wizard of Oz or some time around then, but they were kind of messing with this stuff even back in 1925. So that's just an interesting thing to have historically documented. Another thing that I want to point out is that this has one of the biggest golden age of horror cliches, I feel like it's called. It's the angry mob! Like a lot of horror movies back in the day used to have angry mobs at the end with pitchforks and torches, and this does not disappoint. And if the movie is him getting beat to death by the angry mob, that is a cliche in most horror movies from back in the day. I don't know why that's such a cliche. It's mainly in Frankenstein movies, but it's in this, it's in a few other movies. In Frankenstein, the mob doesn't really kill him. Well, they kind of do. They burn down the thing, but he's technically alive in Bride, so they don't really kill him there. But I feel like there's a mob in every Frankenstein movie. If not every, almost every. They like the mobs. But yeah, this is a classic mob scene, and like they actually kill the monster in this mob scene. This monster never comes back. Also, if you don't know, Lon Chaney is the father of Lon Chaney Jr., who is the Wolfman, who we will also be talking about. So yeah, there's a legacy there. It's cool that one of the earliest horror icons still had a legacy into past that, with his son and stuff, even though his son and him weren't that close, I hear, but hey, it's cool. The real thing that I wanted to point out is that I think this is one of the only movies where I've seen the word finish as the end chord, like F-I-N-I-S. Not F-I-N-I-S-H or fin or the end. Usually I see fin if it's not the end. But this is the first time I saw it finish. Not even like finish the actual word finish, but like I guess this is an actual word. It's pretty much the same thing as finish, but hey. It's a weird spelling. It's probably an old spelling. But yeah, that's interesting. First Universal Monster, technically. So, welcome to the Universal Monsters, bruh. See you guys tomorrow with another review. Peace out. Hey guys, what's up? CloneYoshi here. You can probably tell what day I'm filming this if you've been watching all these reviews. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the average YouTube stuff. What is up? So, if you haven't already, subscribe and then hit that bell to get those notifications so you never miss a video. And then if you like this video, like it. If not, I don't care. And then if you have anything interesting to say, post it in the comments. And then share it with your friends if you really like this video and stuff. It will help the channel grow, and yeah. So thank you for doing all that stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. 3-day weekend, yeah!